Welcome to Legacy Cast, your source for hearing from top influencers, industry experts, and successful business owners who are telling their unique story about life, values, goals, business strategies, and the various causes they are so passionate about. Future generations will come to be impacted by what is happening today, whether positive or negative, and our mission is to focus on what is going to affect change for the better. Hosted each weekday by James Snow, a former U.S. Army combat medic, now founder and principal advisor of James Advisors Group, a full-service financial planning firm in North Texas. This is Legacy Cast. Welcome, Legacy Cast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, coming to you from North Texas in the Legacy Cast bunker here. And I have with me today a very lovely lady, Cheryl Meyer, and she's a health coach, which a lot of us, especially as former vets, we sort of shunned the exercise thing when we got out of service. So we'll have lots of information from her that's going to be helpful, beneficial, and certainly valuable. And likewise. She also is an author with a book, It Feels Good to Feel Good. So I certainly want to hear about that a little bit more as well. But, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Cheryl to the program. Thank you for being here, Cheryl.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here. Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. As we were sort of having some conversation before coming on the program, you had mentioned that you had been on some 40 different podcasts and have been part of at least, I think it was 7 different summits that you've been part of?
Correct.
So that's pretty impressive. You certainly get out there quite a bit, and the subject matter that you specialize in is so valuable because, when I was mentioning for prior military, they put us through so much stuff, when we're in the service, and things, the different toxins that we're exposed to, the gas chambers, the injections, you name it, you name it. And so it was something that, I believe personally that probably everyone that has been in the service should go through a lot of different health regimens to sort of undo some of those things that have been done, particularly, cleaning out the toxins, cleanses and what have you. And that's certainly something I'd like to hear, more about from you, since that is your wheelhouse.
Well, actually, my husband was a Marine. My husband was a Marine, and he was exposed to Agent Orange. And so living a really clean life, he says he feels better now at 72 than he did in his 50s when all his health problems started to arise from the years when he was in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. And I was in during the first Gulf War, so we didn't have the Agent Orange thing, but they have what they call Gulf War syndrome, which is something that kind of attacks a lot of different body conditions, and especially on joints and so forth. And so, chronic headaches, which I've had migraines like crazy. Insomnia is a huge thing that we deal with, and then also joint pains. And so it rears its ugly head, as a term that you had used when we were speaking before we came on. It rears its ugly head like a monster, and it shows itself up in unusual ways. And so I firmly believe that each person is going to be a different scenario. And I have different friends and colleagues that suffer from a bunch of different things because of the toxins that are in their system and the things that they were exposed to. So, Cheryl, if you could tell us a little bit more about, the toxins and kind of how that comes out in your book, because, I'm really interested in, what is involved in your book, and then how that's going to be able to help so many people, since, unfortunately, Americans are probably one of the sickest societies in the world. And so
we're 37th in the world in health, but we spend more money than anybody else in health. And I am convinced that it's all because of toxins. And the healthcare issue would not be the issue it is if we would clean up all the toxins. And it's actually, they're deregulating instead of regulating. So it's going to get worse. So we need to own our own health and start to eliminate all the toxins that we personally can eliminate.
Sure.
So that we slow down. I had my own business, and was completely ignoring all the signs that my toxic load was growing until one morning I woke up and I couldn't get out of bed. I hurt from top to toe. And each toxin you remove is one step closer to health because it lowers your toxic load. So in my book, I cover all the different areas where I found hundreds of toxins, from the food, which I didn't really understand the difference between organic and genetically modified and conventional, to things like how the mafia has gotten involved in the oil industry and is cutting olive oil with cheap, nasty oils. So you think you're getting a good oil, but you're not. You're getting the cruddy oils. And if you buy California olive oil, they regulate it, and Spain and Italy are starting to regulate their olive oil. I used to wonder why there was such a huge difference in price. Well, it's because the mafia is cutting it. To what kind of meat you eat, to sugar. Sugar is as addictive as cocaine, and it is exceptionally harmful to the body. And the fake sugars, believe it or not, are worse than the real sugar. So there's all different food issues, the lining of your cans, and I go through it all and what to do about it. I don't only tell you where I found the toxins, I tell you what to replace them with, so that you may not like my choice. It took me a long time to find what I now use, but at least it's a place to start. And then there is a group called the Environmental Working Group that has a database with hundreds of thousands of items in it that you can look up and see how toxic what you're using is. But it's not easy to go in there and noodle around, which is why I decided I needed to tell you what I ended up with. And then I go into cosmetics, over-the-counter drugs. No more. I don't take any over-the-counter drug. They all have some downside that's very harmful to the body and harming the body. And some of them are even kind of amazing. I knew Tylenol was hard on the liver because I was allergic to aspirin as a kid. So Tylenol was my choice when I needed a pain reliever. Well, guess where I'm weak? I'm very weak in my liver. And they have now decided it's much worse than they ever dreamt for the body. And Tylenol is not only hard on the liver, it's also very hard on your kidneys. But if you think that aspirin and Aleve and ibuprofen are better choices, they're destroying your gut. So they're not good choices either. So I talk about natural things that your body will love instead of putting the things that your body is harmed by. So for pain, I now use curcumin, which is the active ingredient of turmeric. And I use a form of curcumin that has black pepper in it so that it's assimilated down to a cell level in my body. So whereas I was getting headaches, I don't know that it would help you with migraines because that's a more severe condition. But if I start to get a headache and I take curcumin, it takes care of it right away. It took care of a lot of my muscle and my joint pain when I started to get sick. For hay fever, I tried all the normal hay fever pills, and they all were making me go to sleep, but my body's weird. What I ended up using was Benadryl, which puts most people to sleep, but didn't put me to sleep. And then I read an article that Benadryl is directly responsible, now they think, for dementia. So I eliminated it, and what I use now instead is another antioxidant, and it works better than all those other pills used to work. It's something called quercetin. Quercetin, which is kind of like a supplement with benefits, because not only has it taken care of all my hay fever, but it also is very healing to the gut and very healing to the kidneys, which are a problem because of all of the Tylenol I took. So it's a great supplement that has done my body a lot of good. So I go through all those things. Antacids are dealing with the thought that you have too much acid in your system. But believe it or not, if you have a lot of what I call agita, which is the reflux and the stomach upset, you have too little acid. So it's doing the opposite of what it needs. And if you start to get that, first you need to sort of figure out what foods are causing that. For me, it was things like heavy cheese with all the bad oil in the cheese. But once you figure out what it is, if you have a little upset, you use a little baking soda and water, and it works better, and it has no downside to your body. So I talk about all those kinds of things. And then I go into how you clean your house, I found an amazing product that is not toxic at all, that's made with plant enzymes. I fell in love with it because I eat a lot of eggs. And so if I spray my plate, when I'm done, nothing sticks. You give it 5 minutes and it slides right off. So I wash my dishes with it. I wash my counters with it. I wash my floors with it. I've even started doing my laundry in it. And it's called Branch Basics. And on the EWG scale, it's a 1, which is a lot better than all the 8, 9s, and 10s that have all the chemicals in it that are just god awful for you. I no longer use my Teflon pans. Boy, I didn't want to give that up because I liked that my food wasn't sticking on it. But it hit me all of a sudden. It wasn't just because I was getting all those little black things in my food from the coating, but it was also, every time I cooked with it, putting gases into the air that were toxic, that were helping keep me sick. So I now use stainless steel, and I did buy one enamel fry pan that nothing sticks to, but it doesn't harm me. So I store all my food in glass. I have eliminated as much plastic as I can. Water, that was interesting. I thought that Flint, Michigan was an unusual situation. It's not. Hundreds of cities in America have very toxic water. So you can get a system. First, we started with a system just under our sink. So that was the water that we drank and we cooked with. And we bought stainless steel bottles that keep the water so that we always have enough water wherever we go. We have jugs, we have bottles that we fill up from our own sink. So in the beginning, it costs more money, but over time, plastic water costs you 1,200 times more than what comes out of your tap. So you're going to make up the difference very quickly. And in plastic water, not only are you getting the toxins from the plastic that are leaching into your water, but they've just discovered there are little micro pieces of plastic in that water, which go into your body. And bottled water is less regulated than what comes out of your tap. So you're getting kind of the triple whammy of toxins when you drink bottled water. So you don't have to. We just drove 10 hours from Los Angeles to Sedona, and we had a jug and our own 2 water bottles, and we had plenty of water to make the trip. So it's planning ahead a little bit, but you can eliminate all those toxins. And then I go into toxins of the mind. Oh, let me just tell you quick. One of the most toxic things in your house is your fabric softener and your pods that you're washing your dishes and your clothes with. If a toddler was to eat one of those pods, you might not even be able to get them to the emergency room. That's how toxic they are. And fabric softener is also just god-awful for you. So you don't need it. And all of those beautiful smells they're putting in everything, well, those are synthetic and they're doing your body harm. Right. So you don't want to be wearing perfume. You don't want to be buying something that has a beautiful fragrance in it for you to wash your clothes in. All of that stuff is hurting you. So you need to get rid of it. And I now use essential oils, and I make sure those are not synthetic so that, again, they're good for your body. And so that you know, and somebody said to me in the very beginning, this is overwhelming. I can't possibly do this. Well, it's about toxic clothes. So every single toxin you eliminate is a step closer to health. And if you decide you do want my book, and you write to me, I'll send you a workbook. And my idea is you write down what you find toxic in your life into the pages of the workbook that correspond with that chapter, and what you want to replace it with when you run out of it. You're going to be spending money to replace it anyway. Now you replace it with something that's very low in toxin versus something that was very toxic. And it took me 5 years, but I eliminated hundreds of toxins really rather painlessly. So, and it's been worth it because 7 years ago, I couldn't function at all. I couldn't get out of bed. I hurt. My head was pounding. I had chronic fatigue. I was a mess. And here I am. I'm not completely well, but I'm probably 80% to where I want to be. And I'm not taking medications for autoimmune disease. I do take diabetes medication, but everybody's looking for a magic pill. And guess what? It doesn't exist. So if you clean up and you stop eating the toxins in your food and then you eliminate the toxins in other areas of your life, you don't need to have a life of pain and pills. And then, as I told you, the last part of my book is about how to reduce stress. And I want to give you the one exercise that I use all the time, which is by Dr. Andrew Weil. You can look him up, and you can watch him actually doing the exercise, but it's called the 4-7-8 breathing exercise. It takes you 2 minutes with 3 rounds in each group. So 3 rounds in 2 minutes, and you do it twice a day, and it resets your parasympathetic nervous system. So you go from stress, you significantly lower your pulse, and that simple exercise does a lot for reducing stress in your life. Now, how do I know this works? I drive an hour in Los Angeles traffic to see my functional doctor, who is the woman who has found the root cause to my illness and helped me return to health. I'm in LA traffic. And so I am always, my blood pressure was always really high by the time I got to her office. So now if I get stuck in traffic, I start doing the Dr. Andrew Weil 4-7-8 breathing exercise. All of a sudden, when I get in, she whisks me right in, and she came running out of her office and said, "What are you doing different?" I said, "Why?" She said, "Your pulse is lower than any patient I have had in years. Whatever you're doing, you're doing it." And my blood pressure was down to normal, which it's always elevated when I get to the doctor. So it works, it's simple, and it's wonderful. I go into sleep. You talked about the fact that you have insomnia. There's a new book out called Why We Sleep by a team of doctors at University of California, Berkeley. It's really important that you get 7 hours of sleep and that you find a way to do that, because that 7th hour, this is what convinced me that I needed to make sure I get more sleep. That 7th hour is when your brain whisks all the plaque out, which is what causes dementia, and you need that 7th hour so that your brain can do that. My best way to get sleep is to make a tea, believe it or not, out of banana peels. You boil the banana peel and you add some cinnamon to it and maybe a little bit of stevia if you want it to be a little bit sweet, and you drink that an hour before you go to sleep, and it works like a charm. Simple solution to a terrible problem. So give it a try. I have 37 different ways to get a good night's sleep, and I think I have 35 different ways to reduce your stress, but those are the 2 that my patients, my clients, now that I'm a health coach, tell me work the best for them. I have a chapter on anxiety. I was born with what I call the worry gene. My mother worried all the time. I worried all the time. Ends up, it was a chemical imbalance in my body. Who'd have thunk? And so I went on to a Metagenics supplement that corrected that. And I also have learned how to get my inner champion to silence my inner critic. And I do that by, when my head is going crazy, I write down all the things that my head is telling me, which isn't the truth. Your brain does not necessarily, your worry genes are not giving you the truth. So you write them down, and then you start with your inner critic and you start to argue with them until your inner champion crowds out all those negative, nasty thoughts. And if you keep writing down what your champion has to say, you can quiet it down. And so you don't have to live with all that worry. You can silence it. And then when it starts up, you know that you want to bring your inner champion out. You know, Cheryl, why would you say that about yourself? You know that's not true. And then you keep going at it until it goes away and dissipates. I talk about toxic relationships. It could be a toxic boss. It could be a toxic friend. In my case, I had a toxic lover. I had been in a relationship for 10 years with a guy. I woke up one morning and he looked at me and said, "I don't like it that you're sick." Okay, what do you want me to do with that? So and he did not want to eat healthy. He liked to go out for very expensive, high-end food like we used to eat in the 60s. Had I not left him, I probably would not be alive today, because you have to cook in order to control what goes into your mouth. And so getting rid of that toxic relationship and finding a new guy that wanted to go on a get well journey with me has been an important part of my return to health. And John, who was my Marine, who says he feels better at 72 than he ever felt in his 50s because we're eating so clean and we know what both of our food sensitivities are, so we avoid them all and we control it because we cook most of our own food. And then the last chapter is on exercise for people who don't like to exercise, like me. I didn't like to exercise, so I didn't. And now I do faithfully. One of the things I do is I bought what is called a rebounder, which I call my mini trampoline. And I tape country western music every Sunday. I tape the top 20. And you don't even have to jump very high. You just have to jiggle on it. And the reason that it's important, it's not going to get your heartbeat way up, but it's going to get your lymph system to get all the sludge out of your body that it's been collecting by going around and cleaning up around all your cells all day. You need to get that stuff out of you. And by jiggling on the rebounder, you give your body the opportunity to get that stuff out. Your heart has a motor to keep your blood flowing, but your lymph system can get clogged because it doesn't. So that's my first big tip. And then we started doing something called body and brain yoga, which is a Korean form of yoga that's really more related to Tai Chi. But it is a gentle way to get my heartbeat up, to get me to be flexible, and to also do resistance. And we love it. And there are body and brains all over the country. It's a philosophy for peace and to reduce stress, but it's also a way to exercise that's very gentle. And the thing I love most about body and brain is the community of the people that are in the class. And believe it or not, community is now the number one thing that you need for health. You need to surround yourself with people who support you and love you, because I don't know if you know about blue zones, but there are blue zones, a couple of them over the country, where people have, as a city or a community, decided to eat well and support each other for health. And the longevity coming out of blue zones is tremendous. And they've discovered from blue zones that community is more important than anything that these people are doing to get back to a healthy state. So that's kind of the book and a whole thing. But you have any questions for me? So I stop for a second.
Yeah, sure. We'll kind of go on to kind of a big, high level angle for the moment, because with all of what you're talking about here, it sounds to me, obviously I'm kind of the legacy guy. I don't want to call myself a guru because I'm not. I don't like the term guru, but being a legacy guy is, it sounds like all of this is part of, or has become, part of what your legacy is going to be. And,
I'm very passionate about it. So I want to tell people what I have learned. When I started researching, I didn't even know what I was looking for. And when I wrote the book, I wrote it for other people with autoimmune disease, because I find people all the time and I'll look at them and go, do you know you have inflammation? I can see it here, 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 and here, and they are unaware. But I have discovered that inflammation is really all of our chronic illnesses. So it's become even more important for me to go out and talk to people about toxins. We're 37th in the world in health. Isn't that frightening? Yeah. And yet we spend more money on health than any other country. We have a healthcare crisis because we have a toxin crisis, because we're not controlling the toxins that are going into our food, our air, our water. And it's getting worse. We're deregulating instead of regulating. So in the beginning, I got really angry. Why wasn't my government protecting me? And guess what? I can protect me. I can find out where the toxins are, and I can't eliminate all of them. I mean, when I'm in Los Angeles, I'm going to breathe the air no matter what. But I have air filters in my house that take the mold out of my air and the smoke from all the fires out of my air, sure, and the smog out of my air. For most of us, the air inside our homes is way more toxic than the air outside our homes. So there are things that we can do in every category that will protect our health long-term and the health of our children. And the health of our children is a biggie, because 53% of our children now have some kind of chronic illness. So the reason I've done all these podcasts and all of these summits And I'm now speaking locally as much as I can. I've done several talks at my local hospital. I'm living part-time in Sonoma now, and Natural Grocers has given me the opportunity to speak there once a month. I want to get this information out so that you can be informed that you don't get where I got. Don't wait until you're sick and tired to change. You need to start changing now. And you don't know it, but it takes 20 years for inflammation to hit the tipping point in your body. So I had little things happening to me, and I just completely ignored them. I was running so fast, running my own jewelry business, that I was not paying attention to the signs along the way. The first thing that happened was I couldn't stand being around with anybody with fragrance on. I couldn't breathe. That was my first sign. The toxic load was building up. Then my mascara was making my eyes crazy. And so finding a mascara that I could use was a big issue. And the hypoallergenic ones were just as bad as the other ones, but I did finally find something. Then I woke up one morning and my mouth and my lips and my tongue were completely swollen. I was lucky that I could breathe. By deduction, I figured out that was fabric softener, which ends up to be one of the most toxic things in your house. So your body gives you hints that the toxic load is building, but I didn't know that's what it was telling me. So I got rid of the fabric softener, but I didn't attack all the toxins in my life. And then the 2x4 hit me, and I woke up one morning and I literally couldn't get out of bed because my muscles and my joints hurt so bad. So then I had to get rid of the hundreds of toxins, and each one that I got rid of helped me get a little bit closer to health. And some of what was bothering my body was I was being poisoned by normal foods, which were sensitivities. And there's a test you can take to find out what your sensitivities are. There are normal culprits, which are things like soy, which is now 95% genetically modified, which means they are putting Bt toxin right into the seed when they're growing it, which is very harmful to the body. Or some other GMOs are where they're making it Roundup ready. And I don't know if you've been following the news, but Roundup is a chemical called glyphosate, and they just lost a landmark case for a man who got lymphoma, and the award was $250 million. And there are now 4,000 lawsuits against Monsanto about glyphosate. So the other kind of GMO is where they make it Roundup ready, which means all of our wheat, in order to get the maximum amount of harvest, it gets drenched in glyphosate. So in the beginning, I thought I was gluten sensitive. I'm not gluten sensitive. I'm glyphosate sensitive. We went to Europe, where in Italy, their wheat is more organic, and I had no problem eating wheat. And I figured out it was the glyphosate that my body was reacting to. So the toxins are everywhere, and it's worth it to buy organic. There is something called the Dirty Dozen Clean 15 that EWG, which does the toxin research, they put it out every year. If you think you can't afford organic, at least if it's on the Dirty Dozen list, you only buy it organic. And then it's okay, it's not okay. It's better if you clean them all up. But if it's on the Clean 15, definitely you don't have to spend the money for organic. But I look at it, it's pay now or pay later.
Right.
There are places you can save money so that you can afford the organic vegetables. Maybe you don't stop for that coffee on the way to work every day. Maybe you make your lunch so that you know what goes into it and you're not out eating lunch for 2 or 3 times the money every day. Maybe it's that you stop buying water in plastic, which you now know is god awful for you, and you start carrying your water in stainless steel bottles. All of that will save money so that you can put your money where it will do your body the most good. And it's important because otherwise you're going to end up like me, sick as a dog and not knowing what you're going to do about it. So you don't want to go there. And you don't want dementia. You don't want depression. You don't want all the skin issues. You don't want the autoimmune disease. You don't want the cancer. All of that is a result of inflammation from having all these toxins in our life. So that's why I'm passionate to get out and talk about it. And that will be my legacy.
Yeah, and there's several points that you mentioned in there. Now, a lot of people don't know as much about the Monsanto situation and what have you, but they are also the originators of the Agent Orange, which
Yes, they are. And believe it or not,
industrialized Roundup.
Our food with something that's related to Agent Orange.
Right.
I have something called essential tremor, and my doctor thinks it's because I have that herbicide that's related to Agent Orange, which is impacting my nervous system. I have a lot of that in my body. So they're still using it. It's pretty scary what's going on.
It is. They had so much of it from Vietnam, and then there was so much left over. It's like, okay, what are we going to do with all this? We spent all this money on it. And so they basically just diluted it and repackaged it and put a new label on it, and then, hand it back to us, with a smile and make us excited to buy it. It's ridiculous. And what's even crazier is, we hear on the news about the different countries in Europe that don't want our food. Well, it's a no-brainer. Why do you think they don't want our food? They know what's in it. And
they're starting to ban it. France now has banned glyphosate. Brazil has banned glyphosate. England is very transparent. If it's using glyphosate, it's on their packaging. When we were in Europe, everybody said to us, we can't believe you guys don't know what's genetically modified. We are transparent. And they said, you can eat anything unless it comes from Spain, because Spain is still spraying glyphosate on everything. So yeah, and we're doing it freely. But hopefully things will start to change. Now, Bayer has recently bought Monsanto. Right. So they're going to get the brunt of all of these lawsuits. But Bayer makes a product very similar to glyphosate. And they're making a lot of the other poisonous pesticides and herbicides. So they're not clean. And they're part of the culprits that are making us sick.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's still the case, but I guess a few years ago, many of the people that were head of the FDA were in fact also high-level executives from Monsanto. So
what has happened
is passing laws
from Monsanto to our food to the USDA, I think it's called, and then they go back and they're in a higher level with Monsanto. So and they accept all of the studies that Monsanto gives them. So that, you have to, there's so much dirty science out there. It's unbelievable. So I recommend throughout my book to try what I'm suggesting and let your body vote. Because you're not going to find a study that's going to support what I'm telling you, but your body's going to tell you that you're right. And there's been all kinds of dirty pool. If somebody is studying the impact of all these toxins, they could go on vacation and come back and have their office locked and all their employees fired, because there's so much money supporting universities and supporting research projects. They just got wiped out so that you don't find out the truth about what they're doing. I even put a chapter in my book that they could go after me, and I know that. So I wrote the book from the point of view is, I don't know what's right, if it's this study or this one, but this is what I chose to do because I voted with caution. And hey, look at me today. You need to do the same thing.
And bottom line is that's what people need to do. Think for yourself. Don't just trust because some agency or some corporation told you it was okay, that it was safe. Trust yourself. Trust your gut. God put that sense into your body for a reason. Your instinct is 99% of the time correct. Trust it. Because if it doesn't feel right, doesn't sound right, you're just not comfortable with it, there's a reason. And that's something that I've put my trust in. I, like you, don't go to regular doctors, and that's part of it. I go to a chiropractor. I use Chinese medicine because it's herbal based. It's all natural. God's pharmacy is healing. Chemicals are not healing. They're going to tear down. Whereas the pharmacy we need is out there growing in the dirt. And so that's what we need to be taking, not this other stuff. Now,
and there's a part that God gave us something for everything. We just have to go find it out there. There is something natural that will help almost every condition.
Sure. Now, there's something you mentioned, and I kind of wanted to rewind to that because since we're just kind of mentioning doctors and so forth and major medical, is you mentioned functional doctor. And I know that a lot of the people listening, they're going to be wondering, okay, what's a functional doctor versus, a
conventional doctor. A conventional doctor normally will spend approximately 6 minutes with you in an appointment. I don't know about you, but I used to leave my doctor and go, oh, I forgot to tell her this, this, and this. But what they do is they listen for the worst complaint that you're giving them, and then they match the pharmaceutical to it. That's what it's become. And what I didn't know is that medical schools were all started by the pharmaceutical industry. So that's what they learn. So if your conventional doctor says something like you need to lose weight, but they don't tell you how to do it, it's because they don't know. At best, they get a half a day on nutrition. That's it in medical school. Now, a functional doctor can come in many forms. It can be a naturopath. It can be a medical doctor. It can be a nurse practitioner. They go for additional training in functional medicine. My doctor is an MD that graduated from Yale, but she got sick and she couldn't help herself. So she went back and got certified in functional medicine. And the difference is that any functional practitioner is looking for the root cause. They're looking at the body as a total. They are not so quick to want to give you a pharmaceutical, although if it's a medical doctor that's functional, they can. They prefer not to. They want to, I call myself an onion. They want to take the layers off the onion till they get down to the root cause of what's making you sick. It's like night and day. And let me just give you a couple quick examples. My conventional doctor checked my thyroid. She checked from my pituitary down to my thyroid. Nothing's wrong, perfectly normal. My functional doctor checked from here to my adrenals, completely broken. And so I'm taking a natural thyroid. It's not a synthetic. It's made out of Mexican yam, and it has corrected my thyroid problem. I knew from testing with my conventional doctor that my cortisol, which is a hormone that gets depleted when you're living in a constant state of stress, and I was constantly being chased by the tiger because I thought that was getting more work done for me. Well, I had depleted it, but I was not down to Addison's disease. So my conventional doctor said, you're not diseased, there's nothing wrong. But I was exhausted, and it was because my cortisol level was so low. But she didn't connect those dots. I get to the functional doctor. She immediately tested for something called DHEA. DHEA is another hormone that if it's depleted, you can't make cortisol. So the fix was so simple, I was blown away. I bought a DHEA spray from Amazon by her instruction. I spray it under my tongue twice a day. It filled up my DHEA, which went over, it filled up my cortisol, and voila, all my chronic fatigue went away. So a functional doctor is looking for a natural way to help you. And if they have to, they can give you a pharmaceutical, but she immediately looked at what were my food sensitivities. I have 18 of them. I actually printed them on a business card so that if I go to a restaurant, if I haven't negotiated ahead of time, I go, this is what I can't eat. Go to the kitchen and see if he can work around this and feed me, because I can't eat them. If I eat them, I have an immediate reaction. I can gain 5 pounds overnight, and I have what's called a flare because of the inflammation that those foods cause me. The second thing that she did, she asked me a weird question. She asked me if I overreacted to over-the-counter medications. I said, always did. I said, if I was going to take milk and magnesia, instead of taking 2, I would take a quarter because it immediately made my body overreact. So we did a test. We did the 23andMe test, which I thought I was doing for ancestral history. Ends up, it comes with a full breakdown of the DNA that you've inherited. And one of the things I inherited was an anomaly, and I got it from both of my parents. I have something called MTHFR, which means I have 0 folate in my body, which I need in order to detox. Whatever goes into my body stays in my body. So we started with doing a heavy toxic metal detox. We tested, and as I told you, it was like eureka. I was loaded with them. So I did a heavy metal detox, and I got rid of them all. But here I am 7 years from doing that, and they lodge in your bones and your fat. So now that I'm 7 years away from doing it, I still have them in my body, even though we thought we got them all, and they're starting to leach in again. So I will do probably another heavy metal detox. Then we tested, so first was food sensitivities, then was metal. Then we tested for mold. I'm loaded with it. I have no idea where I got it from, but I did a mold detox that didn't get all the mold. So I'm now drinking a green drink that she has had excellent results with, that I'll probably drink the rest of my life because it makes me feel good. And it's parsley and kale and cilantro and spinach and ginger and lemon and cucumber and an orange. And it's yummy. I put a little bit of stevia in it, which is what I use to sweeten when I want to sweeten, because sugar is so god-awful for you. You don't want the fake sugars or the real sugars, and stevia is actually a plant that does not harm you. So I do drink that every day. I get tested in a month, and hopefully I have now gotten the mold out of my body. But they look at you completely differently, and it's not just match the pill to the symptom. And my functional doctor spends 40 minutes with me every time I go in. So I do my own research. She does research. We sit down. I am an active participant in my health. When's the last time you were an active participant with your conventional doctor? And then we come up with a plan of what we're going to do for the next 2 months so that I continue to get well. I'm feeling pretty darn good, and I'm about to be 70. And my husband, who's doing all of this with me, it says he feels better at 72 than he ever felt in his 50s. So, but we probably got the remnants of the Agent Orange out of him that caused him to have prostate cancer.
Right.
So now eating this way, and we choose to eat all organic, and we buy as close to the farm as possible so that there's maximum nutrients in that food, and we try to eat all the colors of the rainbow because each color has a gift. So it's paying off because we both feel fantastic. And from where I was to where I am now, it's night and day.
And
so,
obviously the listeners can't see you on the screen like I'm able to. But I mean, you look like you're healthy. You look like you're in good shape, and I can tell that, just by how you're carrying yourself, you can tell that you feel good, and so it's not just words. I mean, it's the reality of it. It's obvious that there's something different in there, and I'm like you, that I want to eat as organic as possible, and there's just so many different reasons. But I have learned from a close friend of mine that if you do, like you mentioned, put that expense up front, then it's going to be really, in the big picture, it's cheaper than having an unhealthy life and having to go to the doctor all the time, going to the hospital, things of that sort. That's much more expensive than the food. So would you rather spend the money? Would you rather spend the money on the food, or would you rather spend the money when you feel like crap? I would much rather spend the money on the food, because I don't want to feel bad.
Medicine is pills to cover up what's wrong.
Right.
Health is eating real food, and I call it garbage in, garbage out, just like computers. If you put garbage into your body, it doesn't have what it needs. It cannot keep you well. If you're putting synthetic non-food things into your body, it doesn't get what it needs. So if you're in ill health, you are starving your body of the nutrients that it needs. So by eating organic and eating all the colors of the rainbow, you are giving your body what it needs to function to the maximum. And the body wants to heal. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, and an added benefit that we haven't mentioned yet is that when you're eating the good organic food, the whole food, and you're fixing it at home, you actually end up eating less than what you would eat if you went out to a restaurant.
Yes.
You're eating significantly less food, and you're still full. So that goes into another chemical that a lot of us had heard of, the MSG, which is supposed to be a preservative or a flavor enhancer, but in fact, what it really does is it suppresses that get full reaction that's in your body, so you end up eating more food. And guess why our citizens are.
MSG now, by the way, is under 25 different names. We all know MSG is bad for us, but we don't know that that's what natural flavors are on the package. They call it all kinds of different things, so you're still getting MSG in your food. But the other thing that impacts your appetite is if you're eating sugar, it turns off a hormone that regulates your appetite. And so I used to eat a Thanksgiving dinner and then still want more. And I go, how could I still be hungry? I just ate a huge Thanksgiving dinner. It's because my body kept saying more, 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 because this little hormone that regulated my appetite was not working. If you detox off of sugar, which is like detoxing off of a drug, so I will warn you that you'll be pretty sick for a couple of weeks till you come out the other end. But once you come out the other end, you're not hungry all the time anymore. It's like unbelievable. And then you just want to eat real food because that's what makes you feel good. So detoxing off the sugar is huge in terms of controlling your appetite and eating the right foods.
Sure. Now, as far as let's kind of have a business conversation at the moment, since you do have your business there as well. From a business standpoint, it sounds like you've put a lot of thought into the strategy and what you're doing in order to be able to present this. Obviously from the different podcasts you've done, the summits, writing the book, having your business as a health coach. Is that something that you would encourage other people to do? Since obviously we both know people, I'm sure, that have opened their business, they're really excited, they're passionate, and they're excited to jump into the deep end of the pool, but they don't do all that foundational strategy up front. Is that something you would warn them against doing? Take the time.
I've had my own jewelry business now for over 20 years. And building relationships is critical. As a health coach, I'm really focused more on education than I am on getting clients. And so I'm not making a fortune doing what I'm doing, but I'm also 70 years old, and that's okay with me. I'm focused on having people find out what's happening to them so that their bodies are breaking down. But if you want to be a successful health coach, it can be done, and there are ways to do it where I don't sell what I do enough because I'm selling that I want you to change your health more. But if you keep focused on what I can do for you, which means I need to sell you on the pain points that you currently have and why hiring me will change those pain points. So I have a whole list of, do you have inflammation? And I talk about that when I am talking, especially in my local area, because that's where I'm trying to get my clients from. If you have any of these pain points, I can help you. And I even have some testimonials from people, which I talk about freely, where people write to me and say, you literally have changed my life with this information, because all my doctor wanted to do was throw pills at me, and I was getting worse and worse. And by cleaning up the toxins in my life and cleaning up how I ate, I now am feeling like you say you feel, and your information has done that for me. So, with the clients that I've had, I can make a pretty big impact in your health in 3 months. That's pretty astonishing. So you can build a client base, but you have to make sure that you stay focused on the fact that that's one of the things you want to do. And we all deserve to be paid for what we do. So it's important that you not lose sight of that. In terms of having a business, I don't know. I have a very good CPA, so I don't worry about that side of the business. I have found ways to keep things on Excel spreadsheets so that when it's time to do taxes, all the information is there for me to summarize to give to my CPA. In terms of finding people that I wanted to sell my product to, I grew up in fine jewelry and in jewelry. So I started with buyers of major corporations that I had relationships with, and then that blossomed so that at one point I was selling almost all of the major retailers. But when I got sick, I stopped doing that because I didn't want to be traveling all the time. So I'm down to just some major retailers because I have some staff people that have been with me for 25 years who've been very loyal to me, and I want them still to have jobs. So I still sell in my jewelry business people like Kohl's, and we drop ship to them. But I'm not looking for new business. But you have to build relationships. That's really where it starts. And that's where the business comes from.
Now, over your years of having a business, both the 20-some years of the jewelry business and then also with what you're doing now in the health markets, are there some specific roadblocks and resources that you would encourage people that are wanting to get into what you're doing, different roadblocks that you would warn them about, and then resources that you would encourage them to look for? maybe kind of like some tips out there?
I don't know that these are roadblocks, but a couple of things that I would say about that. You need to be passionate about whatever you're doing, because your passion will come through to whoever your customer is. So that's critical. But you don't need to be so passionate that that's all you do, which was my problem. I focused on my business 24/7 and stopped paying attention to my body. So balance is as important as passion. And so I strongly recommend that you tune in with your body and make sure that your life is balanced, that you have people that you enjoy who support you, and that you take time off to smell the roses. I'm not saying that I didn't have any of that in my life, but I would give some of those things up in order to finish that project or design a new thing for somebody. I was working all the time. So you must keep balance and you must be passionate. You're going to do it too much of your life to not be passionate about what you're doing. And so I started as a fine jewelry buyer in a department store. I did that for years, so I related easily to my customer and I could talk their language. All of that helped, but own it yourself. Own your results and don't be afraid of failure, for God's sakes. When by failing is how we grow. Right. That is a very important step to success. There is not one person out there with a business that I have met who has not had miserable failures along the way. But don't let the failure stop you. The failure is teaching you that you need to approach the wall from a different angle. And so failure is really your key to long-term success. So don't be afraid of it. And the other thing that I've learned just in life is get rid of the friggin' fear. I lived in fear so long about all kinds of stuff. That was that worry going on in my head. I finally figured out sometime in my 50s that the only person who kept me back from doing what I wanted to do in my life was me, because the fear got in my way. The fear doesn't do you any good. So it's a useless emotion. So get rid of it. And if you have fear, do it anyway. Don't let it stop you. Keep going around that wall until you get over it. And then you have a new hurdle. Then keep going after that one until you get over it. Because if you have tenacity and you ditch the fear, you literally can do almost anything that you want to accomplish.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. Nice gold nuggets there that you put out there. And I see so often that, fear is a crippling thing, with people that I see in my finance practice is they're afraid to do those things. They're afraid to invest in that particular direction. They're afraid to let go of something that they've had control of for so long. And the reason that they don't have what they are wanting and don't have what they desire is because they've held such a tight grip on it that they've not stayed in pace with the value and the growth, and in this case, staying pace with inflation or whatever. They're holding on to the money, mattress money, for example, and it's worth less next year than it is right now because it buys less for the same amount of money. So, and
if you're not willing to spend money, you're not going to make money. So you sort of have to jump off the cliff and believe that what you want to do and what you're passionate about is going to work, because that's a big part of it. You have to spend money to make money. That's just the way it is.
True. That's true. And, the important parts of that, that's sort of the caveat, that's the opposite side of the coin, is that you help enough people and you don't have to worry about the money because you're doing so much good out there that people want to give you their money because you've helped them. They want to do business because you give them something of value. And so that's such a huge thing to think about is, don't worry about the money first. Just worry about helping people and doing the good like what you're doing. Because with the people that you're speaking to, Cheryl, you're helping them so much that at some point they're going to turn around and say, okay, now I want to do business with somebody. Who am I going to go to?
Right.
And the answer to them is obvious. And so they have only one choice. It's the person that helped them.
I talk about this all the time everywhere I go. This last weekend we went back to Los Angeles because I have a lot of jewelry inventory now that I should have been getting rid of all along. But we do shows every 6 weeks. And I'm selling all my now sterling silver jewelry off fairly cheap. I have built up customer base, so that when they know there's a gem fair coming to town, they all come in to see me and they write to me, you're going to be there, have you changed location? I talk health to all my jewelry customers. So while I'm selling jewelry, and we sold over 500 pieces in 3 days, I also sold 7 books. I had 4 people come back and tell me how much my book helped them. And one loyal jewelry customer said both he and his wife read it. They gave it to their daughter, who's 20. She wants to be me when she grows up. She now quotes from me on a regular basis to all her friends. And they don't eat fast food. They don't eat processed food anymore. He said, my God, what an impact you had on my daughter. So that you have to be passionate enough to not be afraid. Okay, these are jewelry people. Why am I talking health? Why not? So I actually have a sign up in the back that, I'm also a health coach and I can help you. And people will come up and say, I'm here to buy jewelry, but I have inflammation. What do I do? So be passionate enough to spread it wherever you go. So, I'm not also afraid to talk to my health customers about the jewelry that I've made and why I think it's great. So be so passionate that you spread your word and yet stay true to yourself.
It's true. It's true. It's very, very good notes there. Now, when you were starting the new business, going into the health coach direction and becoming an author, what were some of the hurdles that you ran into changing directions? Because, it's a pretty drastic switch to go from jewelry to the health coach direction. So what were some of the hurdles that you ran into and how'd you overcome that?
It actually was a very organic process. Because I turned over my jewelry business with just me, as an advisor, and I started researching. As I started to research, I set up file folders on my computer, and as I found different articles that were helpful to me, I sorted them into file folders so that I could have that as my reference library. After I found my functional doctor and I started to feel good, I decided that there was a need because other people like me were being told it was in their head. Literally, my doctor wanted to send me to a therapist. She said, there's nothing wrong with you. Well, obviously there was something wrong with me. So when I started to get well, it occurred to me that really my purpose was to help other people find the direction that I had found. So I started asking him around, where could I go so that I could get certified so that I would have some credibility to go do this. And I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And at the end of my year of training with them, which was an online course, they had a book course and asked if I wanted to write a book through them because they had a book course I could do after I finished and I graduated. I actually started doing it before I graduated because it was a book sitting there waiting to happen. And so I wrote the book. I started the book in the middle of November, and all of the writing was done by the middle of January, and the book is 400 pages long. Goodness. After that, I needed to do the editing and the table of contents and the index and the resource guide and all that stuff. But the book I sometimes think I channeled it because it just happened. I made an outline. And I got hung up on the organic versus GMO versus conventional produce. But there's a group called the Institute for Responsible Technology, and I sent them the chapter and said, do I have this right? And God love her, she called me and worked with me like 4 and 5 times until I got all the information to be correct. But most of the chapters just wrote themselves. And so it was an organic process because after I had the book, that became my calling card to start to speak and to start to get clients because everything they needed to know was in the book, although it's overwhelming. So a lot of people have still hired me to be their coach. I call it the guided tour versus the self-tour to Europe. If you want the guided tour, I have figured out how to do all this stuff. So I can be invaluable to inspire you to do it too, which is why I call myself a health muse, because you have to be willing to do it. You have to own it, but I can help inspire you with all the tricks that I have learned to get it done. So that's not really what you asked me, but I don't really have a better answer than that.
Well, that did answer it, because you're covering some of the things that would have been hurdles for people, and kind of how you got through that. Now, when we're doing a lot of our brainstorming, many people have that special place they go to do their brainstorming or get their creative juices flowing. As you're coming up with your book, was that something that you took advantage of? Maybe going out into nature and coming up with the ideas for your book, or was there a special place in the house that you did all of that?
I have an office in my house. I wrote the whole book there. I literally wrote all the time, because that's my personality. I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I would write straight through to 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I actually found a frozen food line that's paleo, that's completely healthy. So on nights when I didn't want to make dinner, but I still knew I had to eat healthy, we would eat from that company, which was fantastic. My husband was completely supportive of the process, which was really helpful. And sometimes he cooked dinner so that we could stay on track. But I have a beautiful office that looks out at my backyard, and I would just sit there literally, and it rolled off my fingers. Now, if I do need to go someplace where I need to just feed my soul, I live very close to 5,000-foot mountains in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So we have a trail that we take the car up into the mountains, and then we have an area that we go to just to be out of doors and be inspired by nature. And I'm an hour away from the beach. So the water has always been an inspiration for me. So going out on one of the piers, like at Manhattan Beach, is a great way for me to soothe my soul and to sort of get regrounded, because the water does that for me. But mostly I just sat there and cranked it out.
Wow. Kudos for that. That's hard. I'm sort of the shiny object syndrome sort of person. So if I sit for very long, before long, I see things here and there, on my left and right, that start distracting me. So kudos for being able to just sit and knock it out, because I would have to take many, many, many rounds of get up and plug into nature and then come back and work on it for a little bit and then plug back into nature so that I can keep my focus.
I am doing that a little bit with the second book. It's not as easy to keep my concentration. My second book's going to be How Do I Live This Way? What are all the tricks that I've learned that make this easy to do? Because people tell me they don't know what to do. Okay, fine. Now they know they need to eliminate toxins. How do they do it? How do I drive to San Francisco and have the right food in the car with me, because we know we're not going to get it on the road? How do I carry my water? How do I go out to eat at restaurants? How do I cook around things like I don't use dairy? How do I make a white sauce? I make it out of cauliflower and soaked cashew nuts, believe it or not. And when company comes to my house, they can't believe it's not dairy, because it's really yummy. But there are things that I have learned that are helpful that I now want to share so that people can not have to figure all that out for themselves. But I'm not writing that book as boom, boom, boom as I did the first book, because I have other passions, because I want to get the information out.
So is there a cookbook on the horizon for you think?
I don't think so, because I eat weird. With my 18 food sensitivities, I don't know that people are going to want to cook like I cook. I have started playing a game on my Facebook page of Eat This, Not That. And if I'm working with a client, I have them bring me their favorite recipes, and then we talk about what to exchange out so that it's healthy for them. That I do all the time. I can take any recipe and make it so that I can eat it. But to do actually a cookbook, I think if somebody read the recipe, they'd just say that's weird. When I have company that comes to the house, they can't believe that some of the stuff I'm feeding them is what it is. I'll give you just one quick story. My first client had a husband who really liked meat and potatoes, and she said potatoes have something like 72 toxins on them unless they're organic. So I was trying to convince her to make mashed cauliflower, and she said, Joe will never eat it. And I said, do me a favor, just make it and don't tell him that's what you're feeding him. Just put it on his plate. You make it pretty much like you would make the mashed potatoes, only you steam the cauliflower and you make it. I use ghee, not butter, because I have a problem with the casein in the way and the butter. And I use almond milk instead of dairy. I said, but it fluffs up just like potatoes. Give it to him and see what he does. So she called me the next day and she said, "You're not going to believe it. He told me those were the best mashed potatoes he ever ate." So you can do things with different ingredients that are just as delicious. A lot of people ask my husband and I, aren't we deprived? No, we're not deprived at all. We eat really well. We're foodies. We like to eat. It's just we don't cook like other people cook. So I have been invited at National Grocers here in Sedona to do some cooking classes. So I might give it a try and see if people are interested in cooking weird like I do. But if nothing else, I'll teach them how to exchange out ingredients that are not so good for them for ingredients that are much better for them. And then have them bring me recipes and we'll talk about what they can do to make it healthy, because there are things you can do with any recipe to make them healthy.
So to kind of wind up on our time here today, with the last question that I have here, it's sometimes one of my favorites because it's kind of interesting. It's sort of a trivia question, and some of my guests get sort of nervous when I mention that. But if you can tell me something about you, Cheryl, that most people don't know.
I was single for 35 years. I got married to my high school sweetheart. I got divorced when I was 30. It completely threw me for a loop. I was a lucky person that grew up with two parents that gave me tremendous unconditional love. So when I got divorced, it was not conceivable to me that somebody didn't love me unconditionally. And fear is what kept me from getting into a relationship for 25 years until I went into a relationship with the guy who didn't like it that I was sick. And then I went out and I took a class from a woman named Allison Armstrong who said to me I was going about it all wrong. I was trying to make the man happy. Stop. She said, there's 2 million men out there who are perfect for you. You need to put out exactly what you want, and then your job is to sort. And so after all these years of not being married, I ran an ad on Our Time, which is the old fogey social website to meet somebody, and I wrote out exactly what I wanted. I wanted somebody who would go on a get well journey with me. He had to be highly ethical. He had to be honest. He had to be smart enough to keep me on my toes. And then I went into a bunch of other things that were just important. The guy who answered, I married 2 years later. He immediately responded and lived 10 minutes away from me and had just lost his wife of 43 years to cancer. And he said, I may not be ready for a relationship yet, but I have gained a lot of weight while Margie was ill. I certainly want to go on a get well journey. So why don't we start there together? And I said, wait a minute, you're a left brain guy. I'm a right brain girl. He said, my minor was English. He said, so I'm more right brain than you think I am. And if you give me a try, I'm probably the nicest man you ever met. And you want to know something? He is. And he supports me. When my friends met him, one called me and said, don't screw this one up. I like this guy. My staff would prefer to call him than call me. But if you get fear out of the way, you can have the life you want to have. So I'm sorry I didn't learn this all earlier, but my journey was important to lead me to where I am today. And now I have my purpose. I had passion for jewelry, but now I have my purpose. And there's a new book out called I Want to Live. I have decided I'm going to live to 120. And community is important, and purpose is important when you're my age to stay young and vibrant. And so I have found my purpose, and I'm loving every minute of it.
I can't think of a better way to wind up a good episode. That's good information that you put out there. The people listening obviously are going to want to know how to reach you, how to get a hold of you. So what are some good ways to contact?
I have a website that is loaded with good information. And since I've done 7 summits, I have lots of handouts of health information on a tab called Free Stuff that you can download. And my website is Cheryl with a C, CHERYLM like Mary, Health, HEALTH, Muse, MUSE.com. And you can also go to my book page there and download a free chapter of my book, or you can actually buy my book there, and then I'll send it out to you. And then make sure you ask me for the free workbook, because that makes it a really easy thing to systematically remove all the toxins in your life. And you're not going to remove them all overnight. You're going to do it as you need to, as you run out of the old stuff, because it took me 5 years, but here I am. So each toxin you remove is one step closer to health. Then on Facebook, I have a Cheryl M. Health Muse page where I give you health tips every day. And I have a It Feels Good to Feel Good page where I update you on what's going on with toxins. So right now I'm sharing things like the Monsanto case that they just lost, or different toxins that people are changing their points of view on. I stay up to date on the latest information, and that's where I post it. You can email me at CherylMHealthViews@gmail.com. And I will answer you. If you have questions, by all means, ask me, because I really want to educate everybody. So that's my focus. And if you need help and you don't think you can do it on your own, I can do it by Skype, I can do it by Zoom, I can do it by phone, or you can come to my office in Monrovia, California and sit down with me, and we'll find a way to get you on track so that your health improves. So those are the best ways. I'm on LinkedIn as Cheryl M. Health Muse. I'm on Twitter, but I'm there as Golden Athena 7, which is an old handle for my jewelry business. So it's Golden Athena. Athena used to be the goddess of arts and crafts. So Golden Athena 7 is my Twitter handle. I'm on YouTube as Cheryl M. Health Muse, and I have my green drink that's helping me detox is on there. How to make a crazy white sauce is on there. Some of the things that I've been doing, I am doing a series of Facebook Lives with a woman named Kim Trosfer. She is a less brown person, and so we have Toxic Tuesdays that we're going to start in October. But when I do a live with her, then she has me make a little video that explains how I do whatever the thing was that I was talking about. And those are all on YouTube. So there's lots of places you can get free information from me. The book also has a huge resource section of people you should follow to own your own health and to constantly grow with information. And there is a partial resource section on my Facebook page, on my website. So all of that will also be very useful to you. And even some of the products that I love, I have put on my website. So it's worth it to track me down, because there's all kinds of information that you can start educating yourself with.
Sure. So, you heard it here, guys. Find her, CherylMHealthMuse.com or Cheryl M. Health Muse at Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of them using the same handle. And then Twitter was the Golden Athena, I believe you mentioned. Golden Athena 1.
No, it's Golden Athena 7.
7, okay. Yeah, religious number there. Okay. But, certainly reach out to Cheryl, because, all of this information is very valuable. And, as a good friend of mine frequently tells me, your health is your wealth. And so, you're not going to be any healthier than you are today, but you'll certainly be less healthy tomorrow. And so, nip it in the bud right now, and get on the right track and get that taken care of.
And sign up for my mailing list. I do newsletters with all kinds of information. Or if I'm going to be doing a special live event, I let you know so that you can watch me. All of that is very useful and helpful for you. So my job is to get you the information you need to raise healthy families, be healthy yourself, and also it's good for the earth. So that's what I have taken on as my challenge right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Cheryl. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. And like I wind up each episode, I'll look forward to seeing you around the bend.
Perfect. Thank you. And I have a special place in my heart for veterans, because my hubby is one. So I want you to be as healthy as you possibly can. And thank you all for your service, because it's huge.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Legacy Cast. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to come back next time as we speak with more top influencers, industry experts, and business owners from around the world.